Woodward Avenue, the first paved road in America. Woodward Sports, the first sports network born in Detroit and made for Detroit.
You know what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! The show goes on!
Oh man, if that doesn't get you pumped up to start your morning, I don't know what will. Welcome to the Morning Woodward Show live on the Woodward Sports Network. I am Flannel Sam, and on today's day, the man to my right, the one, the only, Sean Baligian. I don't think I've ever done a show on the desk with you, so how are you feeling this morning?
Yeah, you know what? You and I have done a lot of stuff together,
Yeah.
but we've never, we've been to the Church of Mahomes together. We've done a lot of things together, but no, it's great to be with you, man. This is fantastic.
No, it is. I'm very excited about this one. When I saw you walk in, I'm like, all right, Sean Baligian, let's do it. And of course, I got JB Smoove in the TD booth and Kenji today, and on his usual Wednesday stint in the sound booth. Good to have you back, Kenji. I don't see you as often as I used to when you were doing mornings more often, but good to have this crew together today. And as we all know by now, Ben Johnson is returning to the Lions. This is a much happier day than I thought that it would be, especially given the fact that the NFC Championship game loss is still recent, and I still think it stings for a lot of people, including myself. But that's the type of thing that can happen that can make a lot of us fans, including myself, turn the page and get even more excited about next season. And we're going to get into that at 8:15 and 8:30, all of the implications of Ben Johnson coming back, because we're going to keep it happy at that point. But for the first segment of the day, and Sean, I know you're more happy about this than I am for sure. Michigan State basketball, they beat Michigan by 19 last night. And here's what I will say, and I've been very consistent about this. If Michigan basketball had to be sacrificed for a Michigan football national championship, I'm all for it. I'm not even mad about that. But when I'm in the middle of it, I can't watch this crap and just be silent, because there was a time, I believe, when it was the summer of 2022, when our former comrade Adam Beydoun was basically on was looking to get Al Avila fired, kind of using his pulpit to try to get Al Avila fired, and I'm going to continue to do that for Juwan Howard, because as we all know, as all Michigan fans know, I know some of you don't care, but that's fine. I need to get this off my chest. The Michigan basketball is an impossibly bad 7-14 this year. Not 7-14 in conference, 7-14 overall with their record 2-8 in conference. And they just lost at Michigan State in a game where they were actually ahead at halftime by 2, but ended up losing by 19 to a Michigan State team, which has been disappointing in their own right, but they're at least a real program. And it's just a continuation of the burning down job that Juwan Howard did to what John Beilein built. Because need I remind you, from 2013 to 2019, Michigan basketball really had it rolling. They went to 2 national championship games. They had 8 players during that time period drafted in the first round from Michigan. And to give you some perspective, in that exact same time period, MSU had 5, Kansas had 5, and Villanova, who won back-to-back national championships, only had 4. So Michigan basketball was rolling, and they were humming in a way that they really hadn't been since the late 80s, early 90s, with the 89 national championship and the 2 Fab 5 national championship game appearances in the early 90s. But what has been done to this program has just been an absolute disgrace, and I'm not just gonna sit by and let that happen. Juwan Howard should be fired right now. He should be banned from the state of Michigan, and it's not just for this year. Remember, last season, Michigan basketball had 2 first-round draft picks and Hunter Dickinson on their roster and didn't even make the tournament. The season before, they had 2 5-star recruits coming in Moussa Diabate and Caleb Houston, and barely sneaked into the tournament. They were preseason ranked 6 and barely sneaked into the tournament. I know the year before they went to the Elite 8, but they lost in the Elite 8 to an 11 seed in UCLA. And in the COVID-shortened year following the 2019 very good year by John Beilein, they would have been a bubble team. My point is that there needs to be a standard at Michigan basketball, a standard that was set by John Beilein, a standard that has not been continued by Juwan Howard. And before I let you go, Sean, my biggest fear, and I think this is actually very, very, very possible, My fear is that Michigan will not win another game the rest of the season, and Juwan Howard will still be allowed to remain head coach for next year.
Let me start here. I mean this. I've never been one that tries to pander to the audience, okay? I think anybody that's known me, life is better when there's a good Michigan and a good Michigan State, whether we want to admit it or not. And Flannel, I think you would probably agree with me. Michigan State hasn't been able to keep their end of the bargain in football the last few years, obviously. Hopefully that changes with Coach Smith. But life is better when there's a good Michigan and there's a good Michigan State. The lack of buzz about that game last night was disgusting. It really was. I mean, you're talking Michigan State. That should be stop the world type of stuff around here, and it wasn't. Maybe part of it was on Peacock. I don't know. But sometimes, and it's funny that you mention Al Avila, all right? Because in the early days of Woodward Sports, when I was here doing a show with Joik Bell, and I was doing some other things around town, I was somebody very early, starting in 2019 to be precise, that said, what are you looking at? There's nothing there. This is all wait till next year, wait till the year after. There's nothing there. And people would say, yay, prospects. And I'd say, okay, now we live in the internet age where you can look up numbers. Like, instead of listening to what people telling you about how great this player is, how great that player is, you can actually do some research and say, there's nothing there. He hasn't gotten value. The problem is, and I'm not saying this condescendingly, and I know many of you are going to take it condescendingly, and I'll just tell you when, okay? People don't want to hear the truth. They don't. That's one undeniable fact that I've learned in my 30 years doing this job, okay? There are people out there that don't want to. There were people that did not want to hear that Al Avila had done nothing to build this team. And you could break down each trade. And, yeah, but prospects. So you were asking me to believe in the invisible. That was always the argument about Al Avila, honestly. Well, wait till you see this, and wait till you see that, and wait till you see that. I've already seen enough. And I think what's going on right now, to your point about Juwan Howard, is very similar, okay? You're asking me to believe the invisible right now. Who are you bringing in regards to your recruits? Where is the rebounding? Where is that hunger? They hit a point in so many games this year, Flannel, and I'm serious. I feel bad for guys like you that have had to watch it, where you just go, okay, that's that. Yeah. You know, and you're absolutely right. Michigan State has their own issues. And I think a lot of Spartan fans, you guys belong in that group that I was just talking about, of people that you want to believe in something that isn't there right now. Well, it's just going to happen because, Tom Izzo. Okay, well, this has been, in essence about what? A 500 basketball team for the last few years. I mean, they have in the Big Ten. That's been a 500 basketball team. So, again, tournament team, sure. Gonna make one of those patented Izzo runs. I guess I'll have to believe it when I see it, and I have no problem owning it if that ends up being the case. But there's nothing there right now with Michigan, Flannel. There isn't.
There most certainly is not. And one of the most damning stats that I've heard is that Michigan this season is 7-7 now in games in which they have a halftime lead. They lost a couple of games early this season to Long Beach State and to McNeese. That should have been, I would say, I know McNeese is good, but they haven't beaten anybody. They should just be automatic wins. That's why it's so impossibly bad for a Power 5 team to go 7-14. I mean, they lost in double overtime to Florida, lost in overtime to Oregon, lost a home 3-point game to Indiana, and a home 2-point game to Minnesota. You're right. There's just no end of game execution. They don't defend. They don't have the talent that they are normally accustomed to. There's no NBA guys on this roster. The recruiting class was horrible. Their transfer portal, they actually tried to bring in Caleb Love, but he was not deemed academically, I would say, eligible to be at Michigan. And see how he's doing at Arizona right now, having the best season of his career. And Steve O'Baby says, hey, don't worry, Sam. There's always the NIT. No, actually not. Michigan's not making the NIT this year. They'll be lucky to win 10 games. Yeah, at least, I mean, even to make the NIT, you got to be at least above 500 or something like that, or the CBI or whatever the hell tournament that they have. To me, this is worse than Tommy Amaker. This is worse than Ellerby. This is just a complete demolition job by Juwan Howard on what was one of the better and more consistent winning programs in the country for a good 6-7 year stretch. I know they didn't win a national championship, but they did make 2, and that's nothing to sneeze at. So as much as we want to talk about Ben Johnson, as much as we want to kumbaya, which we will in just a couple of minutes, I never want Michigan basketball fans, and I get it, Michigan football, national champions, I'm still happy about that. I'll be happy about that for the rest of my life. I just don't want people to forget how good it was not that long ago in Michigan basketball and how terrible it is right now. I mean, Sean, have you ever seen a Michigan State team in your life that had twice as many losses as wins? Not in conference, overall. That's impossible in Power 5 college basketball.
It really is a strange thing. And boy, they're just a tough watch.
Yeah.
And I hate, I'm serious. We should be like when Caroline and Duke get together. Like, honestly. Yeah. And to have it mean next to nothing, the lack of buzz yesterday disgusted me. I mean, just absolutely disgusted me. And, people want crying and whining and raise it on Peacock. Well, you know what? If the game's that big, we'll go out and get Peacock, damn it. And unfortunately, it just wasn't there. I mean, congratulations to Coach Izzo. I mean, he's had an incredible career, 700 victories, and it was cool to see so many guys back there. But it is sad what's become of, a rivalry that not that long ago, you knew when those two teams were playing, right? When John Beilein was there, you knew when those two teams were playing. And correct me if I think there was almost, dare I say, a healthy respect between both programs too.
Oh yeah,
and people don't like to talk about that. I don't like anything that Michigan State does. I don't like anything that Michigan does. I think there was a healthy respect between both those college football programs for a few years. It's weird how far it's fallen down.
Oh yeah, and I will give your school credit. Detroit Dabber 313 in the chat. Izzo got his 7th career win last night over the Wolverines. Legend. I mean, as far as my lifetime goes, he's the best Big Ten basketball coach by a country mile. There's nobody that can even touch him. I don't like to say it, but it's just true. I can't argue with the numbers. Another thing that you can't argue with is a Lady Jane's haircut, especially when I go there to get this great style that you guys all love in the chat. Come to Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men for an award-winning haircut experience. Register to win a trip of your dreams and all expenses paid suite for the 2024 NCAA tournament. That's right, no expense spared for you and 5 of your best buds. Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome.
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on Shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Woodward Golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids, all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today.
What up, Woodward Sports? Dispo Dispensary is bringing you the ultimate experience for the big game in Vegas, and they want you there. You can win 2 tickets to the big game, plus a flight, hotel, and accommodations by following these simple steps. First, follow dispo.michigan, @showmedicated, and @showmedicatedcbd on Instagram. Like Dispo's pinned post, comment and tag someone you love to bring. Plus, if you repost on your story, you get an extra entry. It's that easy. Join the Dispo family for a chance to score in Vegas. The big game awaits. Follow, like, tag, and repost now.
What?
Oh, yeah. Nothing. CJGJ. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There we go. Oh, cheers, buddy. I think we need to get you a pick.
What happens when you run a great business for over 50 years? You expand and offer more products to more people. This is exactly what Les Stanford did by adding Les Stanford Buick GMC, the same great service that customers have come to know and trust on Woodward Avenue just south of 9 Mile. Check out Les Stanford in Dearborn today. Find the brand you want at lesstanford.com. Welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show live on the Woodward Sports Network. I am Flannel Sam. To my right, I've got the great Sean Baligian filling in today. And in the TD booth, we got JV Smoove. And in the sound booth, we've got Ken G back on his usual Wednesday post in the sound booth for the morning show. You're quite the visible man these days, Kenji. I feel like you're the Truman Show. I've said that about a lot of people lately, about like you, about KG. It's just, I wonder if you ever sleep, but I appreciate you for coming in on these days. What the work you've done, and obviously you too, JB, has been just, I cannot overstate how great you guys are. But I had to rant a little bit about Juwan Howard and Michigan basketball, but now we can talk about something that will unite every single one of us in the building, and I would suspect most of Lions fans. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is back.
Yes, sir.
We are back. We are back. We are getting Ben Johnson back, and we're the three best friends. Okay, I'll stop quoting The Hangover. But honestly, it's Sean, I'm going to ask you, as somebody who has been a Lions fan for a lot longer than we have, how significant is this for the Detroit Lions to bring Ben Johnson back?
Huge. It's absolutely huge. You can't understate it. And I think, you know what, we needed some good news yesterday.
Yes.
I'm going to speak for me. I know you touched on it. I was gutted. Monday. I'm not joking. And you go through life, and trust me, to the younger fans out there, losses will get easier. I mean, there was a time I used to rant and rave and break things and stuff like that, and nobody's ever going to call me mature ever. But that is one of those things that you get better with it. That Monday to me was like a flashback. It was like a flashback to when I was younger, because I'm not joking. I was gutted, and it's, even when I think about it right now, It like, honestly, it makes me sad. And I'm not saying that there isn't better to come, okay? I'm not saying that. I hope you know that. I mean, you got to love the direction of this franchise. You got to love the fact that you have Brad Holmes in there. Like, if you don't trust Brad Holmes right now, you're trying too hard. You're trying to be that guy. That guy has earned our trust, and there's no reason not to believe that it's going to keep going up. But with that being said, okay, this was a missed opportunity. Sunday was a missed opportunity, and that it's going to stick with me until they take that proverbial next step, and hopefully it's next year. A big part of why they got to where they got to is Ben Johnson. And you don't have to believe me, ask the guys. And that's, to me, Flannel, with all the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth amongst Lion Nation on Sunday night and Monday night, try to take emotion out of it. Okay, take a step back and listen to what these players are saying about these guys. Listen to what the players are saying about Dan Campbell. Listen to what the players are saying about Ben Johnson. And I will say, as I did all day Sunday and all day Monday and all day for the rest of my life, okay, we can chip at Dan Campbell if you want to be that guy. Why did you go for it here? Why did you go for it there? You can chip at him if you want. You know what the issue is? Execution. Plays were there. Plays weren't made. Period. End of story. We can have the discussion. We can do both. But I think it is disingenuous, to say the very least, if you're not at least talking about how the execution wasn't there. I don't have any problem with debating, should he gone for it here, should he gone for it there. But let's tell the full story, okay? And the full story includes plays were there and plays weren't made. Ben Johnson is a guy, people love him. Ben Johnson is a guy that, do you know, I'm going to show my age here. It kind of reminds me of when Sean Payton was the hot name for a few years, going back to the early aughts. And every year you heard, Sean Payton's going to get a gig. Sean Payton's going to get a gig. And then you sat back and you're like, all right, when's Sean Payton going to get a gig, right? Sean Payton eventually got the gig, but it took a couple years to find that right spot. He waited for the right spot. And you know, I think that's part of the equation. I don't buy any of he's asking for too much money. I just think far too much is made of that. Not only did his agent deny it a few months ago, but it's the National Football League. They shit money. Like, come on. Like, seriously, stop it. Like, really. Oh, that's too much money. They're making so much money. Like, knock that off. Guys here. I mean, that's something to be celebrated.
I mean, there are a couple things that I want to respond to right off the bat, because I think, and I know that this is a team that's set up for sustained success, at least so we think, but for the people, and I was gutted myself, and I still am to some extent, but one of the things that people have been saying, and I think it had a lot of merit at the time, is, yeah, the Lions are a young team and they lost the NFC Championship game, which there's no shame in that. We would have all taken that result before the season if we were guaranteed it, but it was also gonna come with losing Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. But now he's back. Now the fire and the sadness, I think, is going to start to subside to some extent, because the expectations coming into next year, I think, are even greater than they would have been, and they would have been great before. And as far as, and I've been guilty of this too. I was critical, probably more than I should have, in the days following Monday and Tuesday, because it's raw. The emotions are raw of some of the third quarter play calling by Ben Johnson. But when you really think about it, that 4th and 2, it was there. Josh Reynolds dropped it. On the next drive, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled on the very first play. And on the drive after that, Josh Reynolds dropped an easy 3rd and 10 conversion that probably would have gone for at least 20 yards. And I think if Josh Reynolds would have caught either of those passes, they probably would have scored on either of those drives. I mean, that's not Ben Johnson's fault. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm just saying that we are very, very fortunate to have him, and the Lions have had top 5 offenses, at least by scoring, the last couple of seasons. JB, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Like, how significant is this for the Detroit Lions, bringing Ben Johnson back?
It's extremely significant for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, having him come back, he realizes that, you know what, he wants to see what Brad Holmes can do once again in the draft and see how he can improve this team. And also, I kind of feel like he's a little upset with himself and the play calling, as you guys said, from Sunday. Like, he wants to improve. He wants to do better. He wants an opportunity for the Detroit Lions to actually make it to the Super Bowl. And I think that's why he's coming back right now, that he still has a lot more to prove, and he's not giving up on this team. And, hey, I'm glad that he's back.
Sean, you looked like you were chomping at the bit for a second.
No, you know what? I'm glad that I don't have a problem, and I think both of you guys said it appropriately. It's tough in the aftermath of a game to sit back and try to think of things logically. It is. We all struggle with it, okay? But if we're going to have that conversation, you have to look at both sides of it. And I think you did right there. You know, I don't have a problem if you say, man, I might not have called that, but make sure you include Josh Reynolds dropped the pass. Not once, but twice. Make sure that you include that, you know, Gibbs. And I'm like, for Gibbs, this doesn't change anything for me. It just doesn't. Sorry. I think the kid was a stud. I think the kid surprised a lot of people out there that were weeping and wailing and crying their eyes out when he was drafted. But you have to tell the same story. And I'm going to echo what you said. It would be so easy today to sit up here and go, don't worry. This is just the beginning. It's just like the Pistons in the 80s. You know, we have to beat the Hawks. We have to beat the Celtics. We have to beat the Lakers. And well, it'd be so easy to sit there. It doesn't always work that way. Now, let me say, do I think there's a next level with this team? Absolutely, I do. No doubt. But may I present just as evidence that it's not as easy as I think some people want to make it out to be? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that long ago. Okay, when is Josh Allen going to get a Super Bowl? How many Super Bowls is he going to get? And by the way, with that, for the older generation out there, I don't want to hear one more comparison going back to the Lions in 1991. No more, okay? That I think that is a very bad comparison. Well, we all thought in 91 when they went to the championship game they were going to take the next step. That's true. But what I think people don't talk about, maybe you guys, the younger generation, don't know, is one starting offensive lineman was paralyzed, okay? Mm-hmm. They lost 1/5 of their offensive line was paralyzed in that game against the Rams. Another 1/5 of that offensive line was killed by a truck on his own front lawn 6 months after the season. It's not exactly the same thing. When you take 2 cogs off your offensive line, 2/5 of an offensive line that so many people, including yours truly, thought, hot damn, it's finally together. And tragedy strikes both of them. We'll never know what might have been had Mike Utley and obviously Eric Andolsek not happened. That was a huge factor in regards to the Lions perhaps not getting to where they all thought. The pieces are in place. It's time to take the next step.
Oh, it most certainly is, and we're gonna talk about that a lot more in terms of like what their goals are for next year, what the ceiling for this offense is for next year with Ben Johnson coming back. And Kenji, I know you got to react more in real time last night, but how big of a deal is this for the Lions to be able to retain Ben Johnson, especially when nobody really thought that they would?
Yeah, seriously, it's a sigh of relief, man, and I do think the loss definitely influenced his decision, because maybe if we continue to win, maybe he does walk. But he's committed to what the Lions have built here, and I'm just happy that he decided to stay, man, showing his loyalty. That's also a big help for Tanner Strand, and Hank Fraley end up staying too. You get those guys for another year, and he's just gonna continue to improve upon this offense. But one thing I do want to implore is the third quarter play calling. I do think he needs to improve in that area, because if we're just talking about the postseason, fine, but this has been a season-long problem for Ben Johnson, and I would definitely like to see him going forward work on that. I know it'll probably come with more experience, but I'm just looking forward to what more kind of intricacies he'll add to this offense. And man, I look forward to having another dominant top 5 offense next year.
Yeah, Kenji, you said it well. Nobody's perfect. Ben Johnson certainly isn't perfect. There were times where I think we all think he got a little too cute in the red zone in the third quarter lots of times. But overall, during his tenure with the Detroit Lions, this is one of the first times I can really remember when you talk about the Lions and explosive offense in the same sentence, at least consistently across the board. In 2022, they were 5th in scoring offense. In 2023, they were again 5th in scoring offense. And in 2021, after Anthony Lynn was let go and Ben Johnson was elevated to passing game coordinator and him and Dan Campbell worked in conjunction, their offense took off. Jared Goff started his run that he's still on. Amon-Ra St. Brown started the run in which he eventually became a first-team All-Pro wide receiver. You look at the offensive line, although that's not all Ben Johnson, Hank Fraley has a lot to do with that. The offensive line is now the best in the league. You look at David Montgomery playing the best football of his career with the Lions, with the most talent offensively, but also with Ben Johnson. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs, once he got going, had a phenomenal rookie season. Sam Laporta had one of the best rookie tight end seasons ever. And I know that either of those two guys were probably going to be really good players, but they thrived in ways that I think really unlocked them in the Ben Johnson system. You even look at Josh Reynolds, who came to Detroit in 2021, and ever since then, the NFC Championship game drops notwithstanding, has been valuable and played the best football of his career. And you even look back to a guy last year who we've forgotten about now, Jamal Williams had the best season of his life in this Ben Johnson offense. So the reality is one of the biggest reasons the Lions have been so good is this offense led by Ben Johnson, and the fact that we're actually getting him back. Some people, I think, thought they might lose him after 2022, certainly after 2023, but he's back again. Man, have you ever experienced this type of excitement when it comes to a coordinator in your life as a Detroit Lions fan?
No.
Yeah.
And this is breaking the seal for so many different things for my generation. It really is. And I always say, Flannel, I think my generation has turned into a bunch of babies, okay? What was this? We've seen so much. While that's true, okay, you know what? I think of young fellas like you guys, okay? You know, at least my generation, we did see that playoff win. We did see an NFC divisional title. We did see multiple playoff things, and I brought this up. Like my son, for example. You know what my son saw? My son saw a pounding against New Orleans in 2011. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The absolute heartbreak and disgrace that was the Dallas game in 2014. And a season that absolutely fell apart at the seams. People forget the 2016 Lions were 9-4. Yeah. Okay, lost those last 3 games, and then just that awful loss against Seattle, where it was just a terrible watch. And you grew up in the decade of despair, for goodness sake. I mean, that was your formative years, the Matt Millen years. So I think while my generation likes to, look at themselves and say, boo-hoo, these kids haven't seen anything. You know what? They're right. They haven't seen anything. So what's happened in this past year? I mean, we have broken so much ground with this franchise. It's insane. And this is why I say again, there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees. I'm not saying, well, because they did this, they're going to take the next step. It doesn't always work that way in sports. But you got to feel good about it. I like my chances better than not, that's for sure.
Ooh, and we're gonna go into more detail of what the ceiling is for this offense in the next segment. But first, I have to tell you about Dispo. Experience Dispo Dispensary, a team that curates an unbelievable atmosphere. Dispo is now giving out 2 tickets plus hotel and flight accommodations to this year's big game in Vegas. Go on Dispo's Instagram page at dispo.michigan and follow directions on the pinned post. Or scan the QR code and it will take you there. Let's get you sports fans to Vegas. Dispo Dispensary, disposhops.com, your local cannabis plug.
Have you ever wondered where all the finest restaurants get their steaks? It's Fairway Packing Company, providing Michigan restaurants, hotels, and casinos with prime beef for over 60 years. But now you can buy these cuts of meat for yourself at the Steak Shop by Fairway Packing Company. Prime porterhouse, A5 Japanese New York strip steak, dry aged Wagyu beef tomahawk. Delicious. Get to the Steak Shop today. Enjoy fine wine, have a private party, and get the finest cuts of meat anywhere. The Steak Shop on Mack Avenue in Grosse Pointe Woods, or order online, fairwaypacking.com.
Where's the most convenient place to get that big fitness energy?
It's Planet Fitness.
Join today for just $1 down, $10 a month. With over 2,400 locations and equipment for every workout, you can get in, get energized, and get going. And with free fitness training and most clubs open 24 hours, everyone belongs in the judgment-free zone. So join today for $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment, cancel anytime.
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Woodward Golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today.
Dreaming of a new home but feeling the financial pinch? Mark White & Associates, your trusted real estate experts, are here to help. Mark White and his team will pay up to $5,000 of your closing costs. That's right. I said $5,000. Call Mark White & Associates today at 248-290-8242 or visit them at markwhitesales.com. Again, call Mark White today at 248-290-8242 to make your dreams come true. Welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show live on the Woodward Sports Network, and we've been talking about Ben Johnson returning as offensive coordinator to the Detroit Lions. It is a joyous day in the city of Detroit, even though just a few days ago the Lions lost the NFC Championship game, and I think one of the reasons is because so many of us, and I think rightfully so, doubted that it would happen, at least for this season, but he is back. And now that he is back, I put something that might have been a little overzealous in the show sheet, but when you're talking about the ceiling for next year's offense when it comes to the Detroit Lions, I think we would all agree that top 5 is very achievable again because it's been achievable the last couple of years. But Sean, is this the type of offense that could be maybe the best in the NFL next year, or furthermore, maybe even be looked back as a historically great offense?
You know what? I kind of chuckled when I read that.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I was going to rip on you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to rip on you.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with thinking that, and I'm going to tell you why. Mm-hmm. When you have some of the pieces that they have, okay, let's, again, logically, because I know some of you, like in your earnestness to be right, you want to believe that this isn't real. So sometimes the earnestness to be right trumps fandom and everything. So let's try to talk logically to those people. Laporta was a rookie. What usually happens with rookies? Do rookies go like this or do rookies go like that? We all know the answer to that. Gibbs, rookie. J-Mo, a guy that we've watched in real time, him go like this. We know the backstory. There were already people out there that wanted to call him a bust. We know the backstory. It wasn't the easiest circumstances, whether it be the knee, whether it be the suspension. So, again, just logically thinking, okay, trying to take emotion and slap dickness out of it, okay? What do younger players usually do? They go like this. And the one thing, and you kind of touched on this in the last segment, the one thing about Ben Johnson is, look, coaches all have egos. Coaches at one point in time all think that they're the smartest guy in the room. It happens to every coach. The great Bill Belichick, okay? Flannel's lover, Andy Reid. It happens to all great coaches, okay? The whole smartest guy in the room thing. But one thing that I think delineates and separates a guy like Ben Johnson, okay, is I'm going to go back to Joe Lombardi. Remember Joe Lombardi?
Yes.
Joe Lombardi tried to take square pegs and fit them into round holes, and round holes into square pegs. His system was what worked. Instead of putting guys in positions of comfortability and favorability for their skill set, that was a guy that tried to make your skill set and your skill set and your skill set fit his system. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about Ben Johnson. He knows what the strengths of Jared Goff are, and he plays to those strengths, and he puts them in positions of comfortability. So, yes, I don't think there's any problem. I don't have any qualm with you or you sitting back and saying, boy, sometimes, yeah, he just tries to get too smart. Go with what works. We can have that conversation, but at the end of the day, he's not asking somebody to be something they aren't. And that's what endears him to the guys in the room, is he puts them in positions to succeed.
Ooh, that's been a part of why the offense has been so great. Why some of these players have developed, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example, from a 4th-round draft pick to a first-team All-Pro in year 3. That's impossibly good. I mean, Penei Sewell's another one who is now, I think, the consensus best tackle in the NFL, and I think the best lineman in the NFL, among others, obviously Laporta and Gibbs as well. And Matt Broder, the esteemed Matt Broder from Woodward Knights.
Shout out.
And Woodward and Maine. Jared Goff is still getting better. One more year with the same OC and QB coach, he will be even better. And coaching staff continuity with Jared Goff, I think, is going to be huge. Working with a brilliant offensive mind, which he did with Sean McVay, and he's done again with Ben Johnson, will be huge for him. And David Beasley, this is interesting. Laporta has hit his statistical ceiling. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but if he has, it's a pretty damn good ceiling anyway. He will continue to be good. J-Mo is the key. He adds the big play that was missing. And that's another example of somebody who I have at times been a little rough on, I will admit it. But we're hoping that next season he's somebody who plays a full year. There's no suspension, there's no injury. And obviously we can't count on that. Stuff like that happens, particularly injuries in the NFL. But you saw flashes of what he can be and the element that he can add. I mean, most notably in the NFC Championship game on that end around. And I'm going to go to you, JB. What is the ceiling for this Lions offense with Ben Johnson next year? Is it top 5? Is it number 1 in the NFL? Is it as far as being mentioned with the historically great offenses?
I mean, I definitely think it'll be mentioned with the historically great offenses. If you want to say number 1, I think that might be pushing it a little bit.
Well, not
top
number 1
5.
ever.
Well, yeah. Not number 1 ever. But top 5, yes, I can definitely agree with you on that. And it all depends on a lot of the questions that this team answers during this offseason. Like, who are you bringing back? Who are you re-signing? Is it time to go all in on free agency and trades and, this draft coming up? I know we have a lot of picks in it, but still, can Brad Holmes sit here and find those diamonds in the rough and, find your next Puka Nacua, your next golden star right here? But I definitely think they have a chance, especially if they bring back a lot of these guys who have bought into Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and this whole system. Because if they're bought in, Ben Johnson's coming back. I don't know what AG is going to do, but, it's okay if he doesn't want to return. But at the same time, these players are bought in, and they want to see this team succeed. So that's all the answers that they need from me.
Yeah, and I think we all agree that it's going to be at least on paper, it should be a great offense. You never know what happens in the NFL. But still, top 5 2 years in a row, more player development from the young guys, another draft by Brad Holmes, a free agency period with the most cap space they've ever had to work with. I think that bodes well for the future. And Chuck Brewer in the chat. Sam, just a tad bit of pushback. Now Ben can address his one flaw that I have taken heat for calling out, his third quarters. And like I said, I've never said that Ben Johnson's perfect. He's had some issues with third quarters at some point this year. But as I said early on in the show, and Sean, you echo this, and it's something that I had to take a step back from and realize. If Josh Reynolds catches that 4th and 2, the Lions are probably in the Super Bowl. Furthermore, if he catches that 3rd and 10 after the 49ers had tied the score, they probably score on that drive and have a better chance to get in the Super Bowl. Those are not necessarily Ben Johnson's fault. Am I saying he's perfect? Absolutely not. Have some of his third quarters been kind of shaky this year? Sure. Has some of his red zone play calling at times been like, dude, what are you doing? Just like pounded up the middle to David Montgomery? Absolutely. But Ben Johnson, I think he is the perfect guy for this job, and I think he's the best offensive coordinator as far as coordinators go in the NFL, and the best in Lions history up to this point. And Kenji, I want to hear from you. Is this a Lions offense that can be top 5 next year, best in the league, or even historically great? What's the ceiling for you?
Well, for me, my personal ceiling is definitely first place offense in the league.
Okay.
But as a Lions fan, I feel like it should at least be top 3. And when you look at what the Lions have on offense, our season was literally carried on the backs of 2 rookies, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. And the ceiling is just absolutely like that. If that's just the base floor of what they can do, man, they can only improve from here, and you just got to be excited for that. And I think if they can add another O-lineman and a receiver, depending on whether they re-sign Josh Reynolds or DPJ, I absolutely think that they can have a number 1 offense in this league. And I know you brought up the J-Mo point, and that's something that I've been hammering the whole time. If we can unlock what Jameson Williams can bring to this offense, man, they will get to a whole nother level that we have not seen. And you kind of saw that in the NFC Championship. I know a lot of us kept calling for that J-Mo game. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Well, it kind of happened when you needed it most. In the NFC Championship game, he showed a lot of improvement throughout the year, and I feel like it culminated in that championship game with him scoring 2 touchdowns and really being a big factor. If he could have caught that deep ball from Jared Goff, man, that would have been beautiful. But, man, I just look forward to what they can bring next year. But like I said, I don't see why you can't think that they would be a number 1 offense in this league.
I love what you said there because, you know, one of the words that a Lion fan never wants to hear is the word patience, okay?
Yes.
None of us. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. We don't want to hear patience. You don't want to hear patience about the team and the direction it's going, and you don't want to hear patience about a particular player, especially when a guy was drafted by where J-Mo was drafted. But if you take the time to listen to what the coaches are saying, they'll give you the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah.
How many times in the past year did why isn't J-Mo more involved? Why isn't J-Mo more involved? And these guys said, hey, listen, this is a process. He's been behind. We've got to get him up to speed. And once we got him up to speed, you've seen that playmaking ability show itself and manifest itself more than it did in the entire beginning of his career. You saw those brief glimpses, right? You saw the little brief glimpses and a play here and a play there. This is a guy that can help you in a myriad of ways. I'm not saying that he's going to be Jerry Rice. I'm not saying that he's going to be Randy Moss. I'm not saying anything like that. I want him to be an explosive piece and part of your repertoire. You know, hey, I got a dagger right here. Hey, look, I got a 12 gauge right here. And listen, I got a missile that I can fire at you by the name of J-Mo. And that's what I want. I want him to fit into the overall arsenal and have that big playability.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys mentioned that because I was talking to the esteemed Neil Rule in the back from Big D Energy 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and he said something that I actually agree with, even though, as everybody knows, nobody's been more critical of Jameson Williams than I have. He said that watching J-Mo on that end-around touchdown that he had against San Francisco in the NFC Championship game, that was like football porn. And he's not lying. It's amazing to see what he can do with the ball in his hands. And I would like to see him develop into the wide receiver number 2 next year and get more targets, get more involved, be on the field when the Lions open the season, which would be the first time in his career. Not taking a shot. It's just facts at this point. But at the very least, he did make plays this season that impacted winning. You go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, the Bears game at Ford Field, which they won, the Saints game with that end around. You talk about the NFC Championship game in which he started the scoring. So we've seen the big play talent. We've seen what he can do. It's just all about consistency. And I don't think the Lions offense, as critical as I've been of Jameson Williams, will hit that best offense in the NFL ceiling without J-Mo being more involved from day one next year. But a lot of that depends on him, depends on his health. Hopefully he doesn't get another suspension. I doubt that that'll happen. We'll see. But Ben Johnson being there, Ben Johnson coordinating and getting the most out of young guys who are going to improve, and draft picks that you entrust under this coaching staff, this Lions offense can definitely be, I think, best in the NFL, and certainly the best that we've ever seen from a Lions team. But coming up next, we're actually going to talk about a defensive player. And speaking of defense, a defensive player that I think will be a little bit of a lightning rod in this room, but we shall see. But speaking of defense, there's no better defense than Guardian Alarm. It's a new year. Let Guardian Alarm offer you customized solutions from real experts. Our professional technicians take the time to recommend security and automation solutions specific to your needs. 24/7 professional monitoring. Call us anytime, day or night, and know that a Guardian team member will stay on the phone as long as needed. Technology backed by people. Your safety and security deserves technology that's been proven to work, and people have been proven to care. Call 1-800-STAY-OUT. That's 1-800-STAY-OUT. Guardian Alarm, your local security experts.
At work and at home, we're there with smarter security solutions. Featuring complete automation with customized alerts and more. For over 90 years, we've been the company that's been counted on to protect what matters most, all with personalized service and care. Right now, for a limited time, receive a free video device plus free installation with a new home system. Guardian Alarm. We protect Michigan.
Thank you to all the fans for making Woodward Sports your #1 online destination for Detroit sports. We promise not to drop the ball.
Your home is your most important asset. Flexibility in the sales process is key. When you work with Mark White & Associates, you can cancel at any time, for any reason, without penalty. Speaking of flexibility, check this out. Who you work with matters. Hire the best broker in the game.
Over 60 years, Fairway Packing Company has provided Michigan's finest restaurants, hotels, and casinos with prime beef, Wagyu beef, and dry-aged beef. Experience the Fairway difference for yourself today. Visit the steak shop in Grosse Pointe Woods for grab-and-go steaks, or order online at fairwaypacking.com. Ad read enough to get Sean Baligian salivating. I absolutely love it. And welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show, live on the Woodward Sports Network. I'm Flannel Sam. We got Sean Baligian to my right, JV Smoove in the TD booth, and Kenji in the audio booth. And we've done a lot of kumbayaing when it comes to Ben Johnson being back for the Detroit Lions. But with what comes with an offseason are some decisions that have to be made via free agency. I know on yesterday's show we had a discussion about, is Josh Reynolds somebody that the Lions should bring back? Today we are going to have the CJ Gardner-Johnson conversation. And I want to go around the room first before I get to myself. Sean, is CJ Gardner-Johnson a priority for the Lions to bring back or no?
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Deep breath. Deep breath. Try to take emotion out of it. Are you ready? If the price is right.
Yeah.
I know we love the guy, okay? We loved his swagger. He brought an attitude to a franchise that, let's face it, we needed a little attitude. We've had sand kicked in our face our entire lifetime, okay? I think that's part of the reason why people around the nation loved this team and gravitated to this story. I said it for years, Flannel. I don't think people around the nation understood that we had one playoff win in my lifetime, that young guys like you never saw a playoff. I mean, that's amazing when you think about it. And you would talk to people from around the country, and they're, and they're like, there's nothing funny about that. That's real. No, you don't only have one loss. Yes, we only have one win. But getting back to the topic at point, I think sometimes in situations like this, you let emotion become part of the equation. What can he bring to the table? Let's ask yourself that. Number one, what do you bring to the table? And number two, is the price right? Those are the questions that you have to ask. So I'm not trying to take the coward's way out. What's your price tag would be my first thing. Love to have you back. Love your attitude. I think there's some game left and everything. But if you want mad money, might be best to look elsewhere.
I mean, in the modern era of salary cap NFL, what's the price has to play into any deal that you make.
100%.
Even if you're talking about some of the best in the game, like a Patrick Mahomes, for example, it always has to be taken into account. JB, I will go to you next. Is CJ Gardner-Johnson, should he be a priority for the Lions to bring back next year?
Well, I hate to do this, but I got to agree with Sean on this one as well, too. Like, it all depends on the price. Because I don't honestly think he's going to ask for, like, a ton of money. But then again, at the same time, I don't know. Maybe he sees the success and the rise that the Detroit Lions have, and he's trying to cash in on it. But I don't think he's that type of player. I think, if anything, you could probably bring him back maybe $7-8 million for another year just to see if he really has something left in the tank. And I like him personally. I don't know why you don't care for him as much, Flannel, but I still feel like there's that swag, that attitude that he brings to this team that, hey, you haven't seen in the Detroit Lions team in a very long time. But I will say this. If you come back, you have to actually back up everything that you're saying. 100%.
Damn it, JB, you outed me. But I think people already probably knew. But that's why I wanted to get everybody else first. I didn't want to, sully the jury pool or anything like that. KG, is CJ Gardner-Johnson somebody that the Lions should prioritize bringing back next year?
Well, when you say priority, I would say no. But
Fair.
Do you want a player like that in your locker room? Absolutely. And shout out to Spenny, because we was talking about this on the heavies, but he's making around 6.5 this year. I think if you can lock him up at 2 for $10 million, I think that's the number. I wouldn't go too much above that for him. But I always say, just imagine what a full season of CJGJ would have looked like in this Lions defense. It's a shame that he couldn't play the whole season, but he has made an impact on this defense and in this locker room. And even when he came back, he got an interception. I know his NFC Championship game wasn't great, but he had an impactful interception in the Bucs game. And he just brings an energy that this defense absolutely needed. And I know a lot was made about, him in the locker room, especially with the emergence of Ife Melifonwu this year. But I think the guys love him in this locker room. You don't hear them say a bad word about the guy. And believe me, he is a team guy at the end of the day. He wants success. He wants to win. And I think he would be a perfect complement to this safety room that's already deep. But with Brian Branch playing more of a nickel role, I think there is still a need for CJGJ on this team. And like you said, Sean and JB, it's all about the price. But he likes it here. He was always a fan of AG before this. So I think this is a destination he would like to stay, especially considering the success.
And before you go off, because I want to comment, you're absolutely right. That should be a consideration when you talk about price tag, and all three of us brought it up. But you also know it's not. The average fan out there doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
They I want this guy. I love him. He's mine, and let's make him mine forever. I mean, that unfortunately, that kind of thinking happens way too much when you have conversations like this. It would be idealistic to think that let's just keep the whole band together. Everybody's going to be here, and we're going to run it back. There are going to be changes. You're going to lose a guy that, for whatever reason, you loved, whatever the case may be. It's way too idealistic to think that. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions, and it depends what he and his agent are asking for. If they're asking for the moon and the stars, you give a tip of the cap, and it might be best to move on.
Yeah, well, as you guys can probably guess, I'm going to probably upset a lot of people. And we might have to go for another segment because I want you guys to respond. I don't just want to drop this bomb and then be like, okay, next segment. Absolutely not. I'm not bringing CJ Gardner-Johnson back under any circumstances at this point.
Wow.
Any circumstances. Any
Wow.
circumstances. And here's why. And there are some reasons that are in his control and some reasons that are out of his control. First of all, he made exponentially more headlines off the field than on. He was the architect of the whole ski mask debacle, which I thought was the dumbest thing ever in the history of Detroit.
My God. Come on, Sam.
It's the most overplayed thing ever in the history of Detroit. Who cares?
But we all bought into it, except me. me. I was the only person saying this is dumb, this is stupid. When Hunter Dickinson did it for Michigan, everybody said that it was the dumbest thing ever. But when CJ Gardner-Johnson did it, it was just like, let's just clap like dolphins and sell them out on Amazon. And oh, by the way, what happened in that game? They got their humble pie that they deserved, which ultimately I think helped them out in the season. I'm not happy. I wasn't happy at the time that they lost.
Why is the ski mask thing such a bad thing?
I don't understand
because nobody in the history of the NFL has done it. It's just some gimmicky thing that I didn't, and I don't like it. I don't like it. And it didn't work. And it's not just the ski mask thing. It was.
You know, if they didn't do the ski mask thing, I'm convinced they win that game.
They
had nothing to do with the win or
loss.
loss.
Come on.
Come on, Flannel.
It's a culture thing, man.
It's a cult. Ski masks? Yeah. Things that people wear when they're robbing banks? Come on. I don't like it. I'm sorry, I don't like it. And it wasn't just that, though. It was the constant cryptic social media posts about like, ooh, I'm going to be back. Ooh, I'm going to make all these comments on the team while you were sitting at home. What he said when he was coming back, saying he didn't want to be part of a rotation, even though as of right now, with the emergence of other safeties, I think he was a role player. All this feuding with Deebo Samuel this season, like early on, calling him little boy and all of that, even though CJ Gardner-Johnson, and I am a Lions fan, but I am a truth teller as well, can't sniff Deebo Samuel's jock when it comes to playing. He cheap-shotted Deebo in the NFC Championship game, which directly cost his team 15 yards. He shit-talked Baker before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game and brought up Russell Gage as part of his wide receiver core.
You don't want to shit-talk Baker Mayfield.
Hold on.
There's hell to pay for that.
Even though Russell Gage hadn't even played a down this whole year. And I get it. In that game, he got a pick and backed it up, but that was the only time he really did it this year. He waved to the fans, even when the Lions were up 21-7, saying bye, 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 even though the offense bailed his ass out because he cost the team 15 yards with his stupid, selfish penalty at this point. And that was a game that they would eventually lose. He decides to identify himself as CD Deuce, which is at best infantile and at worst wannabe rapper type of shit.
That's it. You convinced me.
We all just ate it up like clapping seals. Oh, we got to call him CD Deuce now. You know what? You know what else was, and it's funny because we talk about Deuce. That reminds me of how you played in the NFC Championship game, by the way. He only and he did all of that despite only playing 3 games in the regular season. I know injury's not his fault. Don't even mention it, KG. Stop typing, everybody. I know injuries are not his fault, but he only played 3 games, and the Lions were 10-4 without him. In the playoffs, by the way, in 2 out of the 3 playoff games, CJ Gardner-Johnson registered a PFF grade of under 50, including being the worst defender, according to PFF, on the entire team in the NFC Championship game, with a putrid grade of 33.9, a tackling grade of 26.5, and a missed tackle percentage of 43%. And that's just the CJGJ angle. There's more to it than that. With CJ Gardner-Johnson's absence, left opportunity for other young players to emerge and I think shine brighter than they otherwise maybe would have. Ife Melifonwu, coming on late into the season, in the last 4 or 5 games, had 3 sacks and 2 interceptions, including the game ender to clinch the division versus Minnesota. He also had and those were 2. And following the loss to Chicago, where there was a time when the Lions, I think, were kind of reeling a little bit. I think everyone in this room would say that was probably the low point of the season. And the following games against Denver and at Minnesota, Ife Melifonwu was objectively the best defensive player on the team when they needed him the most, and he had 2 more sacks in the playoffs, and he is the 9th rated safety in the entire NFL according to PFF this year.
Took him 3 years.
Hey, you know what? But he's been better as a Lion than CJ Gardner-Johnson ever was. And oh, by the way, better as a safety than CJ Gardner-Johnson ever was. Look at the numbers. And oh, by the way, Kirby Joseph has led the team in interceptions each of his 2 years he has been with the Detroit Lions. And that is not even mentioning Brian Branch, who was your best secondary player all year. Best secondary player all year. Hold on, Sean Baligian. This season, he was rated as a corner, even though he kind of played safety and slot corner. He was the 14th ranked corner in all of the NFL, according to PFF. Second among rookies to Devon Witherspoon, was your best cover man all year covering the slot, was 5th on the team in tackles, tied for 2nd on the team in tackles for loss, 1st in passes defended, tied for 2nd in interceptions, and had the Lions' only defensive touchdown of the season, which was that pick 6 at Kansas City. If he doesn't make the play, the Lions don't win that game. My point is that CJ Gardner-Johnson is a blowhard. He contributed nothing to this team this year. And the Lions don't need him. They have the safeties. CJ Gardner-Johnson is my least favorite figure in all of Detroit sports right now. Get out. We don't need you.
Get him, Sean.
He was overrated before, and he sucked this year, and he was injured.
Get him, Sean.
I don't even know where to start.
All right.
Really,
Flannel, I
man?
love your passion. I do. The ski mask stuff, I think, is like one of the most overblown nothing stories that I remember in recent memory. I mean, they tried to have fun. Oh, dear, it backfired on them.
Okay.
So what? It didn't have anything to do with a loss. It didn't have anything to do with Geno doing what Geno did and everything like that. The interception part is funny to me because I grew up in an era wherever Deion Sanders played, Deion Sanders had less interceptions than the guy across from him for a reason. Every single year for a reason. They didn't look his way. They went the other way. And so people go, that Larry Brown, boy, he's something, or Kevin Smith, or whatever the case may be. Listen, I get what you're saying. You bring up a good point about the Debo play in the NFC Championship game. I didn't like that. Yeah. They told everybody not to be stupid. He wanted to get stupid. He let emotion get involved. But for you to sit back and say, under no circumstance do you bring this guy back that the guys love. Flannel, I'm not with you there. Well, I'm just not with you there.
Also,
under no circumstance.
Under no circumstance, I stand by that. And like I said, I wanted everybody to respond. So, KG, let me have it.
Well
let me
done.
have it if you want.
No, and also, I mean, the ski mask thing, whatever. If that's not your cup of tea, fine. But I hate this narrative that, just because he said he didn't want to be a rotational guy, that was like a slight to his teammates. It was not. When you're a player of the caliber of CJ Gardner-Johnson, yes, you expect to be a starter, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't willing to come in and work for it. That doesn't mean that he wasn't willing to be a part of a rotation, which ended up happening. And you see, if he still got his shine, he didn't take away from anybody else on the field, and he still helped impact the defense. I don't like that narrative, man. He wasn't saying that as I'm a me guy and, y'all need to just give me the starting role back. Come on now, this is football. And they wouldn't, AG and Dan Campbell would not bring a guy in to that locker room if he was that type of guy. We know their track record about culture and making sure that the right guys fit and all that. So I just don't like that narrative, Sam. But you go ahead. I'll let you.
Well, and to that point, if I may, the one thing that I think people forget is, and I hope the Lions do this draft. I'm serious. I hope the Lions do. You collect corners. You collect safeties.
Yes.
You go bring them in. You can't have enough as far as I'm concerned. That is part of the National Football League today. And I always laugh, especially, why would we draft another corner? I hope they draft two. Seriously, that's what you do. That's the National Football League today. You go collect those guys. You go collect guys up front. If a guy in the National Football League isn't cognizant of that's the way the league is now, and oh, by the way, there's going to be somebody going after your crown or your job, that's on them. He's got to accept that. I think he knows, being a veteran, he probably knows that better than you're giving him credit for. He knows that there's going to be somebody that wants his job. And you know what? Here's the dirty little secret. Most NFL teams would love nothing more than for a cheaper version of CJGJ to step up and take that job because it helps them out.
But we already do. That's kind of my point. And this is and Hoof-Hearted kind of backs up what I'm saying. CJGJ stunk it up, which I would say in most of the games, including 2 out of the 3 playoff games he did. You can't talk shit when you don't back it up. And my point with a lot of the beginning stuff is you shouldn't be talking a bunch of smack while you're not playing, while you're hurt. And not his fault, by the way, but that's just what happened. Truth is, the Lions probably don't need him with Iffy and Branch developing so much. And Hoof-Hearted, I think, put it in a more tact way than I did. It's not just about CJ Gardner-Johnson and why I'm not a fan of his, and I'm not a fan of the Detroit Lions fans' kind of response to him. I mean, I remember when CJ Gardner-Johnson made those comments about not wanting to be a part of the rotation. Our very own Easy on Woodward Heavyweights, which is I was on an island with him, just said, you know what, I don't necessarily like that. And the entire city of Detroit, including CJ Gardner-Johnson, was off with his head. I'm like, come on now.
He kind of led that he was a cancer, though, or he was insinuating that. So I just don't think that's fair. I think you're just looking too much into that.
But here's what I will say. If you want to say that the comments about not wanting to be a part of a rotation is just him being a competitor and him, seeing what he did with Philadelphia, which I think he was a little overrated in Philadelphia, but he was the starting safety on a Super Bowl team. If you want to say that he's not the type of guy to be as part of a rotation as his competitive desire and him knowing how good he thinks he is, I can get with that to some extent. I personally think taking the selfish cheap shot at Debo and then waving to the fans up 21-7 after the offense had bailed you out because you cost your team 15 yards. To me, I'm not saying he is a cancer. I'm saying that those are more evidence to me of cancer-like behaviors.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Brad Holmes. Are you a fan of Brad Holmes?
Yes.
Do you believe in Brad Holmes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Good conversation. Don't you think? I mean, seriously, think about that. Here's a guy that knows what he's doing. Is it safe? Brad Holmes has all of our faith, right?
Yes.
He knew what he was getting with CJ. We knew what we were getting with CJ. I firmly believe that this Lion team needed attitude.
Yes.
I really do. I firmly believe that, okay? And he brought some attitude. Now, with attitude, sometimes the attitude crosses the line. Sometimes it crosses the line. And I hope you know this, my friend. I'm not saying to every one of your comments.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
There's validity to what you're saying, okay? And especially, I don't like the NFC Championship game shit at all.
Yeah.
Especially when allegedly they were warned, don't go down that road, okay? It happens, whatever, 15-yard penalty. But with that being said, okay, Brad Holmes knew what he was doing, did his due diligence, brought the guy in here. We don't know how it would have played out during the course of the season, so I don't get into the what-if conversations. You don't know, I don't know, whatever, okay? But if Brad Holmes thought highly enough of this guy to bring him in on this one-year contract, and Brad Holmes says, you know what, with everything involved, I want to do this if it makes sense, that's cool with me, right?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
he knew what he was bringing in, right? So
He's
don't
been
know.
the same player his whole career.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what we all knew the stories,
Yeah.
right? So I can't. It's almost like he has an incomplete grade because of his injury, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. Now, with that being said, the NFL doesn't have to be fair. That doesn't mean that you automatically sign him up again for next year. But I maintain if the price is right, if he's not asking for the moon and the stars and saying, well, I want a number that is commensurate to the top safeties in the league, I say thanks for the year. It was a lot of fun. Take care now.
Yeah, incomplete is accurate. I'm not saying that he deserves an F for the season. My point with all of that is incomplete in conjunction with, I'd say, Brian Branch having an A rookie season, Ife Melifonwu having an A last quarter of the regular season, and then in the playoffs, I would give him an A for that. And Kirby Joseph, although he's not perfect, he had some coverage issues, but he still led the team in interceptions. It's not just CJ Gardner-Johnson. It's the fact that sometimes when you get hurt, other players get opportunities, and I don't like with his lack of sample size on the field, him making all of the headlines. And as far as attitude goes, and here's the thing that I can't vibe with, because this is what I heard yesterday on some of the shows. I heard guys mention like, oh, Jalen Ramsey has attitude. Deion Sanders has attitude. Well, Jalen Ramsey is arguably the best corner of this generation, and Deion Sanders is probably the best cornerback of all time. I hear people talk about, oh, the Lions need their Rasheed Wallace. Well, first of all, NBA is a different sport. There's only 5 players on the court, and Rasheed Wallace on any given night, you could argue, was the best player on that Pistons team. He might have been the most talented. He brought an element on the court that the Pistons didn't have with his ability to stretch the floor, and just, he was one of the most talented power forwards in the game. CJ Gardner-Johnson brought all of this, I would say, in quotations, attitude, and didn't play. So to me, he was closer to being irrelevant than not. Not completely irrelevant, but closer to being irrelevant than not.
This team needed an attitude.
Yeah.
And he brought an attitude.
You want guys like that in your locker room.
I do. And you know what? I would rather him be a part of it and get guys hyped up when he's out. There's nothing like sitting out. There's nothing. And you know the guy wanted to be here. You know he wanted to be here something fierce. Not just for Detroit, but for himself.
Yeah.
Based on what happened in Philadelphia. So what should he do? Go hide off to the side and everything? Like when he's out, he wants to be part of the team. I never heard one guy complain about it. Not one
Seriously.
guy with the Detroit Lions complain about it and go, "Hey man, shut your mouth. You're sitting out and everything." I don't think that that's fair to him in that regard. If you want to have the debate about what he brings to the table, that's fine. And you know what? I give you credit. You said some things factually, and that's important. I've been a guy that, speak in fact, got to take emotion out of it. That's been my mantra forever, okay? But in the process of doing that, I think sometimes we look at silly things. A ski mask did not win or lose a game for the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
It was a fun thing that people had fun with, and they bought their little ski mask, and, oh, isn't this nice? It's about time we have something like that with the Detroit Lions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm
Seriously.
serious.
Absolutely.
It's like, have some fun. Lighten up, Francis.
And then people, my bad, but people don't give him enough credit for coming back from an injury that was supposed to be season ending. I mean, let's just be real here. The guy wanted to be on the field. He wanted to help this team to the point where he came back from a torn, I think it was torn pec.
Yeah.
He came back from that within a 3-month period. Like, we got to give this guy some credit at some point. And I understand if he's not your cup of tea, but I just don't like, saying that you wouldn't sign him at all. For no reason whatsoever. I just feel like that's a bit of a stretch, especially like if he goes down next year. Wouldn't you like to have a CJ Gardner-Johnson in the tuck? Like, I just think it makes sense, but like Sean said, at the right price.
Well, and for the record, KG, one thing that I won't question, I'm not going to question his toughness. Coming back from that injury, I mean, that was, I think, feared at the time to be season ending. It's just that I thought that when the injury happened, because I wasn't necessarily anti-CJGJ being brought in. I hated the ski mask thing from the beginning, and I got crucified by the entire city of Detroit for it, so maybe I'm a little bitter. I didn't like that, but when he got hurt, I thought that it would significantly hurt the defense. It was one of those, like, oh shit kind of injuries, but the reality is that, and I'm not saying that I don't want to make too much of a big deal of this, but here's the fact. When CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't play in the regular season, the Lions were 10-4. It's not like they just fell off a cliff without him or their defense was significantly worse. I just think that what it did, and maybe you can look at it as a blessing in disguise. Ife Melifonwu was dead and buried on this team. Now he's looked at as a cornerstone piece. Brian Branch, I think we all thought that he was going to be very good, but I think what he's done this season, he's exceeded even our high expectations. I think he has a case for Defensive Rookie of the Year, although I don't think he'll win it. And Kirby Joseph was just his usual ball-hawking self, which comes with some, not so savory things, like sometimes getting burnt, sometimes being out of position, but still. Go ahead.
Can I
Go
tell
ahead.
you a quick story about like a
Yes.
torn pec too? And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the story of when Chris Spielman had a torn pec during the '95 season. And if Chris, I hope you're not ticked at me for like doing this, but I talked to you about it on the radio a couple months ago. I don't think people understand, unless you've been through it or maybe seen it, what that entails. So Chris Spielman played with a torn pec during the '95 season. And for the younger Lion fans out there, the Lions started out 3-6. It was, here we go again, typical Lion season, and then they caught fire. They won 7 games. Going into the playoffs, they were considered by a lot of people one of the favorites because San Francisco kind of faltered down the stretch, Dallas kind of faltered down the stretch, and then we know what happened. They went to Philadelphia. But I kid you not, we were standing at Chris Spielman's locker, and it was the legendary Mike O'Hara. Like he had a towel over his shoulder. And you didn't know it at the time. He was kind of hiding something, though. But you didn't know it at the time. And then the towel fell off. And did you ever see the movie Aliens? You know the movie Aliens, when that thing comes out and, there was a baby alien, like right on his pec right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the big alien, but it was a baby alien. And like Mike O'Hara goes, Chris, what is that? He goes, oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. So basically what happens, your muscle is torn and it rolls up in your pectoral. And it looks as disgusting and allegedly feels as disgusting as it sounds. It is one of the grossest things. For that guy to come back from that and play with that and want to be out on the field, that's a kind of warrior I want on my team.
Yes.
I do. I want a guy like that. Because he had every reason in the world to say, screw this, man. I want my money. I want a contract next year. This is going to hurt me. If I come back on the field, I might hurt myself. I might hurt my price tag. He wanted to come back on the field. I'm sorry. I think that speaks to character, and I give him a tip of the cap for that. He didn't have to do it.
No, he didn't. Toughness is something that I'm not going to question when it comes to CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I'm also not going to question when it comes to CJ Gardner-Johnson that if I ever squared up with him in public, he would end my life, and I'm fully aware of that. But we blew past that break. But that was a fun discussion. I'm glad that everybody got a chance to banter with me a little bit. I thought that was fun. But you know what else is fun? Going and having lunch, dinner, breakfast at Big Boy. And wintertime in Detroit is always better with comfort foods from Big Boy. Try the veal parmigiana or the new Southern Comfort Chicken Bowl. How about breakfast? The stuffed potato pancakes are back. The classic lumberjack or Santa Fe Garde. Also new apple pie hotcakes that are too good to miss. Top it all off with a new gingerbread shake for dessert. Shop by your local Big Boy today.
Savor the heart of home at Big Boy with our all-new down-home comfort dishes. Feast on home-style goodness with our Southern Comfort Chicken Bowl, veal parmigiana, and apple pie hotcakes. The down-home delight doesn't stop there. Potato pancakes are back. Dive into the richness of our perfectly crafted potatoes with our classic potato pancakes and our stuffed potato pancakes. Top off your meal with our new gingerbread shake, a seamless blend of creamy vanilla and sweet gingerbread flavors. Nothing beats the comforting taste of down-home cooking. Enjoy every bite, only at Big Boy.
Stop searching for a vehicle and start finding one. Les Stanford Chevrolet Cadillac makes it easy. We harness the power of multiple dealerships and own the biggest selection of GM brands in the area to get you the car you need. With the Les Stanford Group, you'll have access to 4 different dealerships, providing you with more makes, more models, and more choices. We're connected to more than 1,000 vehicles, and with so many high-quality CPO vehicles available, you'll find new car quality at pre-owned prices. You can start and end your search at lesstanford.com today.
Have you ever wondered where all the finest restaurants get their steaks? It's Fairway Packing Company, providing Michigan restaurants, hotels, and casinos with prime beef for over 60 years. But now you can buy these cuts of meat for yourself at the Steak Shop by Fairway Packing Company. Prime porterhouse, A5 Japanese New York strip steak, dry aged Wagyu beef tomahawk. Delicious. Get to the Steak Shop today. Enjoy fine wine, have a private party, and get the finest cuts of meat anywhere. The Steak Shop on Mack Avenue in Grosse Pointe Woods, or order online, fairwaypacking.com.
You have an opinion? Make sure it's seen and heard. Corner, jumper, tweet us, hop on the YouTube chat, slide in the DMS at Woodward Sports on all social media.
R.I.P. to the same old Lions. Big thanks to Sheila, Brad, and Dan for putting them to rest. And guess what else has found the grave? Same old rock, paper, scissors. Jack Labrador has revolutionized that tired game with 2 new symbols and a franchise-changing 3-point play. Discover the action at jacklabrador.gg now and find out why once you go Jack, you never go back. That was a fun discussion we had regarding CJ Gardner-Johnson. But now, welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show.
Can I hijack the show?
Network.
I
Yes,
want to
you can.
hijack the show.
Please.
I want to ask you all a question.
Please hijack the show.
You brought up something during that read, and like, honestly, my stomach turned, all right? Because I learned something definitively on Sunday night going into Monday.
Okay.
Okay? You, and me, we can all swear that same old Lions is dead.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
And I 100% believe it's dead. Hear me out before you start yelling at me. Do you know what I found out definitively?
Okay.
It's not really dead. And I'm going to tell you why. There are people out there that are never going to let it go until the Lions win a Super Bowl. I found that out definitively over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I did. What did people say about what happened in the third quarter?
I mean, it was an SOL-esque third quarter.
Okay, all right, but look, you know what you can say? It was a bad third quarter. Like you can put any type of name. You can't say it's same old Lions because it's the third quarter of an NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
That's not the same old Lions. And so I had that conversation with people so many times, Sam, and I even posted something on Facebook that had a whole bunch of likes and shares or whatever the hell you kids call it and all that stuff. It's like, that's the one thing that I learned definitively, okay? Same old Lions is dead, okay? To you, to me, to any rational people. Again, there are people out there right now that just want to be right. They want to be right. They've been hurt and jaded so much in their life. They hate the Ford family so much for what they did to their little hearts. They're never, ever going to let that go. The only way you're going to shut that crowd up is if the Lions win the Super Bowl. I'm convinced now. I will hear no other argument. You will hear same. I mean, you know as well as I do, if they went to the Super Bowl and your hero, your immortal beloved Patrick Mahomes, throws a touchdown, as Patrick Mahomes is apt to do, with 31 seconds left to defeat the Lions. Ha ha ha! Lion fans, you thought you had it. Same old Lions. It's never going to go away for that group of people until they win a Super Bowl. Now that I know the rules, I can move forward accordingly. It should go away. We all know that. Anybody with half a brain in their head knows that. But I know definitively you are never going to really stomp that out until they win a Super Bowl. And now I can live my life accordingly.
Well, I'm glad you did hijack the show because I think it's actually interesting, and why not? Let's just get a segment out of it. Obviously, SOL is dead, and one of the reasons that I know that is because, and I like to do this from time to time, do the whole, if you could have been guaranteed this, would you take it? If you would have known before the season that the Lions would have a 12-5 NFC season with an NFC North Division championship, win 2 home playoff games, one of them being against your former quarterback of 12 years, Matthew Stafford. Every single person in this room, every single Lions fan, I think in the world would have taken that 100 times out of 100. If you could guarantee that, or you could just free roll it, you would have definitely guaranteed that. I think, and this isn't SOL in any way, shape, or form, you got to hold on to a 17-point halftime lead. I
100%.
I get it. It's the NFC Championship game, but here's one thing that I think I'm not going to say that I'm going to guarantee it, but I think it's unlikely. There is a chance that the Lions may never have a 17-point halftime lead in the NFC Championship game ever again. It rarely ever happens, and the reason I know that is because I actually did some research on it yesterday. Since 2000, there have been, and I mentioned this on yesterday's show, but I'm going to give this stat to you, Sean, and to remind everybody. Since the year 2000, there have been 24 NFC Championship games that have been played. 5 of them have had a team have a 17-point lead, and all 5 of those teams won the game in blowout fashion. I'm not saying it's SOL. I'm just saying that it was I called what happened with the Lions a choke job. Some people might say that it's a little bit too harsh, but I thought it was a choke job.
I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. And I'm glad that you're separating the two. Like That's okay. They blew a lead. They did it in historically bad fashion in such a short amount of time, okay? Whether it be the Reynolds drop, whether it be Reynolds drop part 2, whether it be the Gibbs, whether it be Brandon Ayuk, who terrified me heading into the game, and I was like, I never thought that's how he'd hurt the Lions.
Right.
Yes, you can say all of that. That's fine. You are well within your right. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to call it, you can't call it same old Lions. Yeah. In our lifetime, now I can say in our lifetime, in our lifetime, they have 3 playoff wins. 2 came in the span of a week. How is that? That's not, by the definition of same old Lions, that's not the same. Being in the NFC Championship, you guys never saw one. I saw one. And unfortunately, in the third quarter, the Washington then called Redskins decided to pull away. People forget that game was closer than people want to admit.
17-10, right?
Yeah, people. As somebody who watched it, that's one of the best teams ever. We could have that debate for another day too. That Redskin team, everything came together for that team. This was a team that was in it till the bitter end and obviously fell short. So yes, all those things are true. I have no problem with you saying that. Well, actually, I do, because it makes me relive it, and then I start to feel gutted again. But don't include SOL. And there were people that they are waiting to drop those 3 letters. And now I know you showed me what you are. Now I know the only way to shut you up is if the Lions win the Super Bowl. And you know what? Here's the worst part about it, guys. You know what these people will do? The Lions win a Super Bowl and turn around and go, gasp, 9-8 the next year. How Lions is that? You win a Super Bowl and then you go 9-8 the next year. We'll never win.
Do you really think that's going to happen? Even if they win a Super Bowl?
Yes.
That will be, man, Sean, you're that struck a nerve. And I understand, but And that's why when I mentioned the whole blown lead or the missed opportunity or the choke job, whatever you want to call it, the disaster of a third quarter, however you want to call it, I prefaced it by saying how all of us would have taken this outcome from the season if we would have been guaranteed it in, say, early September of 2023. You were guaranteed this results. We would have all have taken it. It's the best season that the Lions have had in the Super Bowl era. It speaks to maybe the bad history of the Lions, but it's the best season the Lions have had in the Super Bowl era.
Do you know one of the ways that I had so many people mad at me over the years, and especially when I was doing the show with Joik, and if Joik is watching, Joik, please don't come after me for saying this, okay? The reverence and the adoration that a lot of people had for Jim Caldwell. It didn't make any sense to me. And the players loved Coach Caldwell. But I always said, I mean, there were people, man, I missed the Caldwell years. And I'd go, time out. Yes, Matt Patricia was a pure, unmitigated failure, okay? But as a Lion fan, don't you want more than what Jim Caldwell did? Don't you want more than 9-7? Don't you want more than going to the playoffs and 2 out of 3 times getting, curb stomped, and the other time a robbery? Don't you want more than that? Don't you want what other franchises want? Oh, I miss it, and everybody would wax poetically. And I always said, I pray to God that Dan Campbell has a wonderful season so we can sit back and say, this is what a real football team looks like, okay? The Lions had that season. This is a legitimate contender. They won 2 playoff games. They came a whisk away, and unfortunately with some self-inflicted wounds, of making a Super Bowl, okay? And that's why I for me as a Lion fan, I think part of this fan base's issues over the years is we compare the Lions to the Lions. Does that make sense? We should be comparing ourselves to the Kansas City Chiefs. We should be comparing ourselves to the Green Bay Packers. Well, this is the best Lions season that I can remember. Well, it wasn't good enough. And you know what? As great as this past season was, and I don't use that word lightly, this isn't good enough. And if you don't believe me, ask them. Drive down Woodward. Seriously, drive down Woodward. What is it, 15 miles away? Drive down Woodward and ask any of those guys if they're satisfied. None of those guys are satisfied. Not a one of them. So, I mean, that, to me, I think that's one of the greatest things about this season is that Dan Campbell and this group, Brad Holmes, took the floor and went like that. And this is a franchise, we needed that because we were so apt to sit back and go, golly gee, who can forget when we made the playoffs? That was so much fun. Huh? What? No, it's not so much fun. You want more as a fan, and this regime has delivered so far. But listen, whether we want to, all right, okay. Honestly, were you guys in the chat on Monday? Were you guys when you did your show Monday? Were you guys in the chat?
Oh,
did
yeah.
Okay. How many times did those 3 letters come up?
Not few and far between, but there was some smattering. There was some smattering.
That's why for some, not all, for some people, it's not going away. It's not going to go away until the Lions win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's it.
And unfortunately, at some point, if they don't cash one in this era, it is going to be a failure. And I think coming into next year, those should be the expectations. I mean, 100%. I personally think that a lot of us fans, and hopefully probably most of us fans and all of the players on the Lions, if we all decide to watch the Super Bowl, if they all decide to watch the Super Bowl, we'll look at these teams and be like, man, if the 49ers are to win, just be like, man, we were so close. We had them on the ropes. Or if the Chiefs are to win, the Lions will probably be like, man, we could have beat this team. I mean, they did beat them in week 1. I mean, the Chiefs were missing Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, but still, I think the Lions can play with just about anybody, and maybe next year is going to be the year.
Did you guys do that too? I was that guy on Monday. I'm not watching the Super Bowl this year.
No, I'm going to watch.
No, I didn't say that.
You guys still don't want to watch?
I'm a football guy. I'm going to watch.
No, okay. That lasted for me for about 12 hours.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to sit with my puppies, and I'm going to smoke meat, and I'm not going to watch the Super Bowl. I'm going to watch a Super Bowl.
Well, as we all
I know you will.
Well, as we all know, after my Lions fandom, my second priority when it comes to being a football fan is Patrick Mahomes catching Tom Brady in terms of accomplishments to be the undisputed GOAT QB, which, like it or not, if he gets his 3rd Super Bowl MVP in 6 seasons, that's, I mean, he has no peers right now.
No.
He has no peers
you're
whatsoever.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody could argue with you. Watching the AFC Championship game, there was such a marked difference between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. It's insane. He's on a level by himself.
Well, now that we have just a short segment to end before we go to what's trending with JB Smoove and Mailbag, that's a funny segue because I actually want to bring that game up briefly because we haven't really had a chance to talk about it because we're obviously breaking down lots of stuff Lions. But next I have to tell you about, JB, what's the read, if you don't mind me asking?
You got Swiss.
Swiss Insurance. Do you have football on the brain? Of course you do. Right now, with everything going on with football, with the Lions season ending and the NFC Championship game and Michigan winning the national championship in football, it's the perfect time to shop your home and auto insurance. Shop it like a pro with Swiss Insurance. They cover Woodward Sports Network, and they should be covering you too. Ask for Mark at Swiss Insurance today at swissins.com or call 248-800-4177. Again, that is 248-800-4177, Swiss Insurance.
Hi, my diamonds. It's Crystal with an X. You want to get hot and perfect like me? Here's my super easy routine. Drink at least a gallon of water before you wake up. Attach a weight to everything in your house. Hello? Sell your car and just sprint everywhere. Scream when you exhale.
Don't follow Crystal with an X. Do your own thing at Planet Fitness with tons of equipment and free fitness training in our clean and spacious clubs. Join now for just $10 a month and cancel anytime.
A ton of fun, a ton of sports, and a ton of man meat. Welcome to the Woodward Heavyweights, live daily 5 to 7 p.m. on Woodward Sports.
What up, Woodward Sports? Dispo Dispensary is bringing you the ultimate experience for the big game in Vegas, and they want you there. You can win 2 tickets to the big game, plus a flight, hotel, and accommodations by following these simple steps. First, follow dispo.michigan, at Chill Medicated, and at Chill Medicated CBD on Instagram. Like Dispo's pinned post, comment and tag someone you love to bring. Plus, if you repost on your story, you get an extra entry. It's that easy. Join the Dispo family for a chance to score in Vegas. The big game awaits. Follow, like, tag, and repost now.
Hey, are you tired of wearing the same old Detroit sports merch? Well, it's a new era in sports wearables with new designs, amazing apparel, and the ultimate swag. Check out Woodward's latest gear and latest designs. Go to woodwardsports.com/shop and check out some of these designs we got. Get prepared for next season because Stoked Not Scared is not going away. We got hoodies, we got tees, we got hats, anything guaranteed to turn heads at your next tailgate. Get the latest designs today at woodwardsports.com. Click on that shop tab.
Welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show live on the Woodward Sports Network. It's been fun, Sean, doing a show with you and, of course, JB Smoove and Ken G, the guys behind the glass, some of the best guys that you'll ever want to meet doing this job and just in person in general. Happy to be with you guys all. And before we move on, I wanted to read this comment from Easy because I think it's kind of funny because me and him are obviously on an island all alone, although maybe not so much anymore after the NFC Championship game. To kind of circle back to this, the way Sean feels about Caldwell is how I felt about the CJGJ experience. Was it horrible? No. Was it great? No. I actually think Easy's being a little bit too kind, but you know what? but we've already went over that. I just wanted to give that comment the airtime because I thought it was
if you can find better. Find better.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. I agree with that.
Yeah.
If you can find better, get better. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Not at all. I don't.
Big facts.
No, that's why
It better be better.
You're right.
Ask Matt Patricia.
That is also yeah. I mean, perfect example. Matt Patricia certainly wasn't better. It took till Dan Campbell getting here to really. Some people to put the Jim Caldwell stuff behind. But yeah, we haven't gotten to talk about this much this week, and a lot of people are probably going to get annoyed because everybody thinks I'm a Chiefs fan, but I do like Patrick Mahomes.
Bear with him.
But here
we go.
But here's the thing. It's the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs are representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And I think, and I understand that KC's defense held Baltimore to 10 points, that it wasn't entirely about Patrick Mahomes, but I think what that game and what their careers have shown is that Lamar Jackson is just a great regular season quarterback and a playoff choker. When you look at his numbers in the regular season, he has a 58-19 record as a regular season quarterback, 2-4 in the playoffs. His touchdown to interception ratio in the regular season is 125-45. In the playoffs, it is 6-6, like 1-1, which is terrible. Lamar Jackson is a horrific playoff quarterback. There's nothing else you can say about it, given how great he is in the regular season. I mean, think about it. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes in a little while are both going to have 2 regular season MVPs. But Patrick Mahomes, again, that's how seasons end in the AFC. They end with Lamar Jackson going home too soon, and they end with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He's one of one right now. He has no peers. And if he wins ring number 3 and Super Bowl MVP number 3, there will be a Pacific Ocean difference between him and the second best quarterback in the NFL. We're talking about him if he wins another Super Bowl and another Super Bowl MVP to be nipping at the heels of like a Joe Montana in just 6 seasons and getting closer to accomplishments of a guy like Tom Brady as well. I just thought that game was a microcosm of the careers of Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. Was it more the Chiefs' defense than Mahomes? To some extent, yes, but it was also about Lamar making a terrible interception in the end zone and Patrick Mahomes not making that mistakes. It was about Lamar Jackson getting strip sacked while Patrick Mahomes did not. The Zay Flowers fumble was not Lamar Jackson's fault, but I think the Chiefs as a team have that championship medal, and the Baltimore Ravens most certainly do not.
I don't have any argument with you right
I appreciate
there.
that.
No, you know what? Honestly, I don't know how any human can. I think Lamar Jackson, the week before, okay, what he did in the second half of that game against the Texans started to maybe change the narrative a little bit, okay? Narratives exist for a reason, all right? I used to go through this all the time with the Tony Romo crowd, all right? The Tony Romo crowd was fascinating to me. It's just fascinating. I still, to this day, I mean, some of them kind of pop their heads up, and it doesn't. When you consistently lose, okay, with different teams, that kind of tells me something. Come playoff time, it kind of tells me something. And yes, were there good Romo performances in there? Yeah. Were there bad Romo performances in there? Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you consistently find, and sometimes new and inventive ways to lose, well, that narrative exists for a reason. And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson's at that point yet, okay? Guys, the Baltimore Ravens were the prohibitive favorite, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL, okay? We all know that. Lamar Jackson is a guy that so many people said, okay, this is the step in his career. This is it. This is the one. But when the moment showed itself at home, it was Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things and Lamar Jackson doing Lamar Jackson things. I mean, that's the reality of it. And I know you're going to start your Mahomes chant at any given moment, and I have no reason to even make fun of you. In fact, I might sit there and go like this as you're chanting his glorious name. But all jokes aside, he is one of one.
Yes.
There's Patrick Mahomes, and there's everybody else in the National Football League right now.
I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks all time even, and I'm not going to stay on this forever, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, nobody really elevates their game come playoff time than him, even though he's one of the best regular season quarterbacks ever, at least to start his career. He's number 1 all time in playoff passer rating, number 1 in playoff passing yards per game, has in 17 playoff games is 14-3 as a starter, and has a touchdown to interception ratio of 39-7. He's already tied for 3rd all time in postseason wins with John Elway and Terry Bradshaw. He's probably going to pass.
Funny you mentioned that name. Go on. Keep going.
He's about to pass Joe Montana probably in a couple of years as well. Why is it funny that I mentioned them?
Because the one thing that you said I was going to disagree with, and I was going to bring him up as an example, Terry Bradshaw. And if you don't believe me, when you said there's no player that has elevated his game like that, if you go look at some of Terry Bradshaw's like regular seasons, you could pull it up right now.
Oh, his first few seasons were awful.
And even some of the good. There was one year and fact check me, okay? You guys can fact check me. I think it was the second time they beat Dallas. It may have been the second time they beat Dallas. I think his touchdown to interception ratio was 28-27, 28-26, something like that. That guy in the playoffs turned into somebody else. I saw it multiple times, and you know, to the point where I remember people going, "Ooh, is Terry Bradshaw starting to fade?" That guy elevated his game come playoff time. time and time again. Obviously, the 4 Super Bowls speak for itself, but I think especially later in his career, that was a guy that once the playoffs hit, it was almost like the eyes got beadier, and everybody sees him as, the kind of goofy, like, gee, y'all type of guy that dude was an assassin come playoff time. And, the deep ball to Swan, the deep ball to Stallworth, and the little things that he did. So, again, I'm not detracting from Patrick, okay? But when you say elevate their game, I put Terry Bradshaw in that conversation 100%.
Well, yeah, Terry Bradshaw certainly elevated his game come playoff time, and he got a lot better as his career went on. As I said, as I kind of alluded to in the beginning, his first few seasons, I mean, numbers-wise, were awful. He was, what was he? Was he sharing time with Joe Gilliam or whatever his name was?
There were people that thought he was going to lose his job.
Yeah.
But even later on in his career, he'd have a kind of regular season, and then all of a sudden, when the playoffs started, it was like Super Bowl Bradshaw was there, and it was. I mean, as a little kid, I was like, damn, this guy did it again, and I'm sure that's the way that a lot of people feel about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, and Patrick Mahomes, I mean, as I said, he's got all those numbers. He's got the regular season MVPs as well. And I think if he gets 3, I think if you get 2 Super Bowl MVPs, you're an immortal made man when it comes to being an NFL quarterback. That's why some people still give Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees some crap for some of their playoff failings. It's because they didn't get another one. They only got 1. And I think some of that is overblown when it comes to them. But Mahomes has 2 with a chance to get 3. But yeah, Terry Bradshaw, the last 2 Super Bowls that he played, the second one against Dallas and the one against the Los Angeles Rams, I think he was MVP in both of them, and he probably could have got the MVP in the other one, but Swan got it. But he should have. He had like 4 catches for 160 yards.
Let me say this, since you brought it up too, and now I'm going to stick up for another guy from, I guess, my generation. Dan Marino's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen, period, end of story.
Absolutely.
People are gonna detract from Dan because Dan only got to a Super Bowl. Dan Marino was a freak, okay? Dan Marino was doing things in a league where you weren't supposed to throw 5,000 yards, okay? And there's a reason why it took so many years until the next guy threw for 5,000 yards. Dan Marino was unbelievable. I get that part of the equation is what you're talking about, though. It don't mean a thing till you got that ring. But I will say until my dying breath, Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. And I don't care that he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. Those of you that are of age that watch Dan Marino, he was unbelievable to watch. He really was.
Dan Marino's 1984 season was the best season any quarterback has ever had. He broke the touchdown record by 12. The previous record was 36, and he threw for 48. He was absolutely unbelievable. Probably the best thrower of the football still to have ever played the game. It is unfortunate that he wasn't able to get one, but I agree with you. It's not all. I mean, it is a little bit about rings. Rings definitely enhance your 100% legacy.
100% it does.
And guys like Dan Marino are probably jealous of those like Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, who people still call underachievers, but they each have 1. Marino has none. But it wasn't all Dan Marino's fault. He probably had the best start to a career any quarterback has ever had.
Isn't it amazing what happened? John Elway's last 2 years completely changed the way that people looked at John Elway. And it's funny. So, like, my kids are, like, huge into The Simpsons now, okay? Huge into The Simpsons. And so we'll go back and watch the old episodes now. Well, sitting around the house, hey, wow, it's snowing again. And there were so many little butts of jokes with John Elway and the Denver Broncos on old Simpsons episodes. Because, I mean, that's what they did. They went to the Super Bowl, and more often than not, they were crucified.
They got murdered.
They got murdered, right? And, they blew the big game against Washington. They lost by, 19 to the Giants. And then the San Francisco game was just the biggest joke. And by the way, back when I was a degenerate gambler, the greatest gift from the gambling gods in the history of mankind is when that number went to 8.5. I was a kid that maybe had 27-cent net worth, and I'm like, Grandpa, can I borrow $500? I promise I'll pay you back tomorrow. And to go all in on a bet. But it's amazing how you can change a narrative. John Elway is perceived to be something entirely different now because of his last 2 years, right? And I think that Lamar Jackson still has that opportunity to change the narrative. But I'm going to end the way that I began. Narratives exist for a reason, okay? Because there are nerds like you, there are nerds like me, there are nerds like, so many of you out there and the boys in here today that do the research and go, hey, wait a second. If the same thing keeps happening, we've got ourselves a narrative. And Tony Romo will never live that narrative down. No matter how much some people out there want to try to argue it, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the common denominator was oftentimes there was some bonehead play or awful game, okay? Mm-hmm. And even when he had the good games, when you lose, what are people going to do? Call you a winner?
No.
Ask Dan Marino how that worked out.
Oh, yeah. And Aaron B. in the chat, Lamar will get a ring. I mean, maybe not. And I think, too, and we'll move on after this. I'll just state this and we'll move on. I think one of the hardest parts if you're Lamar Jackson, if you're a Lamar Jackson fan, is that was a golden opportunity. If he plays well in that game and they go on and win the Super Bowl, he's definitively the second best quarterback in the league. He's nipping at Mahomes' heels, although I still think that would be a little overblown, but he has a case. Now, the only case he has is as one of the best regular season quarterbacks who is also a playoff underperformer. I hate to say it, but he has time to change the narrative, but he most certainly didn't do that when he had the chance this year. But you know what is always a good narrative or just a good experience no matter what? Premier Pet Supply, and that is where I go to my go-to place when it comes to my golden retriever Jake and my orange cat Milo. Give your pet the best like I give my pet the best. Premier Pet Supply is hands down Michigan's best pet store. Same prices and all the conveniences of the online and big box retailers, with one major difference: family and locally owned and operated for 30 plus years. Over 60 brands of food with nutrition experts to help you. Same day, local, curbside, and home delivery. Premier Pet Supply, give your pet the best. Visit their website at premierpetsupply.com.
Come to Lady Jane's for an award-winning haircut experience and register for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to win an all-expenses-paid suite for the 2024 NCAA tournament for you and 5 of your best buds. Lady Jane's open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome.
Love Woodward Sports? Love wearing clothes? Then you should be wearing Woodward Sports clothes. Check out our full line of merch at woodwardsports.com. Just click on shop. We have all your favorite designs, like Dan Campbell kneecaps, Woodward Golf, and of course, our own logoed out merchandise. Men, women, infants, kids, all love Woodward Sports. Impress your friends. Impress your boss. Impress your dog. Buy Woodward Sports merch today.
Your home is your most important asset. Flexibility in the sales process is key. When you work with Mark White and Associates, you can cancel at any time, for any reason, without penalty. Speaking of flexibility, check this out. Who you work with matters. Hire the best broker in the game.
Where's the most convenient place to get that big fitness energy?
It's Planet Fitness.
Join today for just $1 down, $10 a month. With over 2,400 locations and equipment for every workout, you can get in, get energized, and get going. And with free fitness training and most clubs open 24 hours, everyone belongs in the judgment-free zone. So join today for $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment, cancel anytime.
Feel alive during Feldman Chevrolet's biggest New Year's sales event ever. Get the best prices on our huge selection of award-winning Chevrolets. Like this 2024 Equinox for $188 per month. Or this 2024 Silverado for $268 per month. It's the New Year's sales event going on now at Feldman Chevrolet, Michigan's #1 Chevy dealer.
Planet Fitness is home of the judgment-free zone where anyone, and we mean anyone, can feel comfortable and work on their fitness goals. At Planet Fitness, you will experience a squeaky clean gym that has tons of equipment, a full-body workout in just 30 minutes, and all memberships include fitness training. You get all of this for only $10 a month, no commitment. No matter where you are, there's a Planet Fitness close by. There are more than 50 in Metro Detroit and thousands more throughout the world. It's Planet Fitness, where your fitness is essential. And now we have to talk about Feldman Chevrolet, where we are at on Morning Woodward Show and Big D Energy every other Monday. With 18 locations as a Feldman dealership in your backyard. Visit feldmanauto.com to find the nearest location near you. Since 1996, Feldman Automotive has been driven to provide a fast, convenient, and first-class car buying experience called the Feldman Advantage. Feldman Chevrolet, Detroit's #1 Chevy dealer. All right, man, this show has really flown by. Welcome to the Morning Woodward Show live on the Woodward Sports Network. I am Flannel Sam. We got Sean Baligian to my right, JB Smoove in the TD booth, and KG in the audio booth. And now it's time for mailbag. So drop your guys' questions. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. I saw somebody in the chat. Oh, Adiz411, going back to the whole Dan Marino thing. Josh Allen is Dan Marino.
I love Josh Allen, and you know what? It's pretty hard to argue with Josh Allen right now. You know, that we brought it up earlier in the show, too. I think I love Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen because I think part of the reason I love him is so many people looked at him and his mechanics and thought, this guy's never going to make it. And he just goes out there and makes plays, okay? Josh Allen is also the poster child for there are no guarantees. I think a lot of people thought that 3-4 years ago, well, come on, the guy's going to win a Super Bowl or two in the next few years. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, okay? But that window that everybody thought was wide open
shrinking,
doesn't look so open right now. And that's why I'm not saying this is what's going to happen with the Lions, okay? Because I do think it's onward and upward from here. But the missed opportunity is what stings for a lot of people, including yours truly, on Sunday. Because, Flannel, with all due respect to your boy, okay, I think the Lions had a damn good chance if they were in the Super Bowl against Kansas City.
Oh, of course.
I really, truly do. And that's the part that stings. That's the part that stings.
Yeah, of course they did. I agree 100%. I think no matter who wins the Super Bowl, we're going to look back and say, like, the Lions should have won that game. I mean, they played the 49ers really close. They beat Kansas City, a hampered Kansas City team early on in the year. But the way the Lions played in that first half against the San Francisco 49ers, that was the best team in the NFL. You'll never convince me otherwise. It's just, you have to tell the whole story. And there was the first half, probably the best half of football in Lions history. The second half, a complete and utter meltdown. It's unfortunate. Chuck Brewer, Josh Allen can't hold Dan's jock. Sorry. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, because I think if Dan Marino were playing in this era, he'd probably get some of the same scrutiny that Josh Allen does. Some of it's unfair.
I think Dan Marino would throw for 60 touchdowns in this era.
Hey,
I am really, I'm being very.
Quarterbacks don't get
you guys,
touched.
okay,
That's fair.
like seriously, the game has changed, right? Can we all agree that now?
Yes.
The rules, the way it's called, the game has changed, and everything is predicated on the pretty passing game and what your quarterback can do to a defense and what your defense can do to a particular quarterback. That's the National Football League today. Dan Marino was doing this crap in an era that was not like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was still 3 yards and a cloud of dust and defense wins Super Bowls and all that stuff, okay? For him to do what he did in 84 is insane. 48 touchdowns, 5,034 yards, or whatever the hell it was. It was insane. It was unheard of. And again, I remind people, it took 20 years and literally the league to change before somebody started matching those numbers. You can't put a price tag on it. If I were to compare Josh Allen to somebody, I think the Brett Favre analogy is appropriate. He's going to do crazy things that you're going to go, oh my gosh, look at that guy. It's just like the backyard. But the flip side to that is he's going to do crazy things that make you go, what the hell's wrong with that guy? You know, and that was Brett Favre. Brett Favre obviously won a Super Bowl. Obviously, Josh Allen has not. But he kind of reminds me a little bit of that gunslinger. You know, like, I don't have any fear. I'm going to throw the ball when I shouldn't throw the ball. I'm going to take off on a crazy run and maybe not protect it as much as I should. That's who he kind of reminds me of, like a modern-day Brett Favre.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think Brett Favre's peak in the mid-'90s was probably better than anything Josh Allen has ever done. But at the same time, it's funny. When we look back at Josh Allen, are we going to look back at him as somebody who just played in the wrong era, that Patrick Mahomes prevented him from winning Super Bowls? Because
question.
The Buffalo Bills have won the division for the last 4 seasons. 3 of their 4 playoff losses have come to the Kansas City Chiefs, the other one coming to the Cincinnati Bengals. But one of those playoff losses in particular, Josh Allen played the game of his life. He threw 4 touchdown passes, including the go-ahead touchdown with 13 seconds left, which you'd think would be enough, but and he never got the ball back. The Chiefs tied it in 13 seconds and got the first possession in overtime.
So amazing. One of the craziest games ever. That was just one of those nights that you reminded yourself how great the National Football League can be. That was just a fun watch.
Yes, and I have an interesting one for you, Sean, because this isn't SOL in any way, shape, or form, but I think this might be something that some of the SOL fans might lean back on. They shouldn't, but this is facts. This is from El Gato. We are still on the never made the Super Bowl list.
Yep.
Yeah, that's. Yep. I mean, unfortunately, that's. I think
that goes back to my point.
Yeah.
There are certain people, not all. I think a lot of rational humans kind of had no choice but to drop the SOL. But there are a lot of people out there that are going to continue to drop it until you do what El Gato just said.
Yeah.
Like go to a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. You guys know we laugh, okay? We laugh. But they go to the Super Bowl. Mahomes does something Mahomes, okay? Which we shouldn't be surprised at. The Lions lose. People are going to say, ha, 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 ha. Ha ha ha! How Lion is that? You know it. Now I know your playbook. We can all deal accordingly. The day is going to come. I firmly believe it. This franchise is going to win one day. I do. I've always said I can't stand the people that think about in terms of forever. The Lions suck and always will suck, because I grew up in an era where the Detroit Red Wings were such an afterthought in every way, shape, or form. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you the Golden State Warriors, who were just nothing but an afterthought, nothing franchise, right? You get the right people in place, they bring in the right people, you can change the trajectory of your franchise. You can. And I think the Lions have the right people in place.
That is a great point about the Warriors, because when I was growing up, I was too young to really experience the Run TMC years. But then for a long time, in between, after they left to that one season they had with Baron Davis and the like, the Golden State Warriors were one of the worst franchises in the NBA. And then in my mid-20s till about now, or a year or two ago, the Golden State Warriors were the biggest dynasty in the NBA. They won 4 championships.
Well, you know what a big hockey guy I am? Yeah. I think you think from 1995 until 2009, okay, the 3 teams that ran roughshod over the National Hockey League in that period were the Detroit Red Wings, who were known as the Dead Things, the New Jersey Devils, who were called a Mickey Mouse organization by none other than the great Wayne Gretzky, and the Colorado Avalanche, who were the Quebec Nordiques and didn't do dick. Like that. That's what happens. You get the right people in place, and you hire the right people, and you can change the trajectory of your franchise. You have to win, though.
Yes.
This is cute what the Lions did this year, and it's better than anything the Lions have done. But this is where I'm not going to become what I detest. I don't like comparing the Lions to the Lions. I want to compare the Lions to the rest of the National Football League, and I don't want to be on that list. And I want to talk about a championship, and I want to tell my grandkids, unlike my grandpa that told me, don't waste your time, they're never going to win. I want to tell my grandkids about watching the Lions win a Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? Yes, I want all of that. So as good as this year was, we should all want more, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong in saying that. The next step needs to be taken.
This is the only season, I think, when the expectation of win the division and win a playoff game the Lions ended up winning 2 will be appropriate. Now, going into next year, even if they make it this far, and I mean, obviously, the season's a long way away, but if they were to make it this far and go down to the NFC Championship game again, it wouldn't be that successful season anymore. It would be a massive disappointment.
Look at the Bills.
Yeah, look at the Bills.
Well, I mean, seriously, that's a great point, Flannel. I mean, the Bills went from a cute story to, golly gee, it's only a matter of time, to it's kind of become an old bit with the Bills now, hasn't it?
Oh, 4 straight.
It has. That's proof positive.
There's been them or the Vikings, but those fan bases have just been, I mean, the early 90s, the Bills lost 4 consecutive Super Bowls, and this era, their other probably best era, well, definitely their best era besides the early 90s, they've been division winners 4 consecutive years and haven't even made a Super Bowl. So yeah, that's the thing, you're never guaranteed to get back. And not to be this person, because obviously we think the Lions have a bright future, but even look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They made a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow's second year, and they lost. They got back to the AFC Championship game the next year. They lost at Kansas City, which there's no shame in that, by the way. And then the next year, Joe Burrow goes down, and they don't even make the playoffs. You just never know what's going to happen. That's why, as And to kind of put a bow on all this, that's why as excited as we are, particularly with the Ben Johnson news, that amps up the excitement to 10. There's still never any guarantees about anybody getting back.
No doubt.
Yep, it's a tough reality of the NFL. But I think on that note, I am going to end it there at exactly 10 o'clock. Man, we actually were on time today. Sean, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
I like how we were able to kind of nerd out about football history at the end. That was a lot of fun to do, and obviously the whole show was great. JB Smooth, as always, thank you so much. We will get to a what's trending at some point, someday, somehow. And KG, get your rest until next Wednesday. But thank you so much for coming in, and you'll be seeing KG and JB on other shows. You're on Ermanni and Edwards, JB, and KG, you're on Heavyweights and Woodward Nights tonight. So if you want,
we'll both be on Heavyweights tonight.
Let's go.
Oh, shout out.
So if you want more of JB and KG, tune into our other shows, and of course tune into Big D Energy from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. For all you guys in the chat, thank you so much for continuing to support, even during some strange and tumultuous times with Woodward Sports. I will never forget that, by the way. All you guys will never, ever forget that. And I will see all of you guys tomorrow on Thursday's show. Thursday, the beginning to February show. Peace.